You can go ahead and start, Grace.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm Grace. You already know me. No.
Yes, I do. I do. Do you want to just say a few words for anyone else who might
Um,
not know, who might be watching?
I guess I'm Grace Alexander. I'm from Dallas, Texas, living in Austin right now. Yeah. Okay. I'll
Okay,
share.
good.
I'll share
You're going
my
to share your show. Okay, good.
Wait. I for some reason. Okay. Just kidding.
I've logged on so I can see the work too, if that's at all helpful. But this will be good. We'll look at your screen. That's good.
Okay.
Okay.
My project, the research focus, I guess, is on Edward Hopper and his painting. I guess when I looked at his paintings, I saw they're very like simple, horizontal, and enforcing like solitude through vertical lines. I guess like there's a lot of images where people are together, they're in the same room, but they aren't interacting, and they're like separated by like this invisible space between them. So it's like create solitude through that, even though you're in the same like open horizontal space together. So in my project, I tried to create like this feeling of separation and solitude through like the fenestrations, which frame people vertically as they're moving horizontally through the space. And like the workspaces too are like in these vertical little secluded like areas so that you are alone, but you're also all like together. Wait, how do I go to the next? Oh, okay. These are my drawings. This is a first floor plan. This is the plan of the second floor. It's facing north is up, and then south is out. And in the drawings, I added this desk, this standing desk, which I didn't have in the model because it was like cut through the section. It was like floating. So there's a desk there, a desk, and then my storage too is added in the drawings. But in the plans, you can kind of see like the like horizontal circulation around the building. Like you go like up the steps here and then out and around and then back like around and down the pit is the same kind of like thing. And then here are my section drawings. So in the section, it captures like the vertical solitude of the people. So this is a west facing section. So this person here is like working at the desk, looking out, but they're alone, like separated from the person upstairs in the bedroom, looking out this way. And then same kind of thing over here with the east facing sections, the person working at their desk, and then the bookshelves, someone getting like a book from the bookshelves, but it's all like vertical here. And then here are my two section pieces. You can see here, it's also, a lot of his paintings are also about like light and shadow. So I wanted to have very like large fenestrations to let in a lot of light and create shadows. I didn't photograph it in the sun though, because it kept freaking getting cloudy. But I tried, we like ran out with like a sheet every time like it got bright and then the sun would disappear. I was like, no. But theoretically, like they would create shadows on the people that could also work to like frame them in their own like space. But here you can like see this person working here, this person working here, and as they walk past the windows, they're framed vertically in their own little solitude. And then same here, like going up the steps from the back, you could see the person like walking by up to the bedroom. And here's like down in the pit. Like the front elevation view. So it is a lot about like viewing from the outside, I guess, like conceptually, because I kind of saw his paintings as like you're the viewer, like viewing onto these people who are in solitude and they don't know you're watching, but like you can see them and you see them like alone or whatever. So it's like emphasis on the outside a lot, with like a simple interior that's very like empty. He like had a lot of spatial ambiguity, like not a lot of stuff going on the inside. So here you can like see the people framed as they're walking by. And then I just try to like do balance for the exterior. And here I liked this view because like the windows all line up. So if you're like viewing it from a certain angle, let's say a person was standing here, I didn't put a scale figure there, but you would like just see them in like the void and like none of the building. Here's the west side, and then a little thing, you can see them like going up. They would like view out this way. Same thing with the circulation, like up, over, out, over, and like down and over. And then here's like the final image. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Grace, for your presentation. I didn't introduce myself in the beginning because I know all of you and you know me because I've been your VisCom instructor this semester, but it's really such a pleasure to look at your work. So do we have someone who's keeping track of time? So I won't worry about that, right? We have a student who's keeping track, or do I need to do that? Have we got someone?
Yes, we need a student to volunteer to do that, please.
Okay. Maybe it might have to be you, Charlton.
I'll keep going back.
Okay, because I won't be looking at the clock.
No, right.
Okay, so Grace, a few things. I'm struck by how much you get from, in some ways, few moves. And I think that's just really wonderful, like the complexity and the nuance and the beauty really that you get from, it's not overly complicated, your project. It's not overly complex. And it looks like you took to heart this idea that you would have an opening, or you would create a move, or you would do something in the project if it were necessary, and if it had meaning, if it had if there were a result from it that wasn't just for the sake of complication. And I can see that. I think these beautiful large openings, and they all are relatively large. There might be an exception of one or two that are smaller, but the overall reading is one of large openings, simple openings. They're not complicated openings. They're very forthright in a way, but they do produce a lot. Like you said, this upper image, I'm going to annotate just a little bit, but in this image, for instance, where you have people who are populating these openings, and I'm going to erase it as soon as I draw it, but that there's associated with each of the openings is either some kind of a idea of being seen or looking or occupation. That's really beautiful. And that the idea that people move back and forth behind these openings, if you look at the bottom image here, this person who's walking, looks like a stairs back there. So they disappear for most of this side of the building. They disappear, but then they appear in this single, I think, very beautiful opening, besides the one that's the circulation, of course, on the bottom left in that image. But I think there's a lot of like I said, complexity and nuance within a pretty simple, and I don't mean simplistic, but I mean kind of straightforward and beautiful, really. I think it's quite nice. The way you've used, let's see, this space down here, the underground space, and the way you've used the stairs. So I actually really like the stair going through a very simple opening, a very small opening, in a pretty like flat and we could say, let's just say it's an imposing elevation. A very small opening here. I'm going to just scribble on it. One simple, beautiful opening that has a stair, so you can kind of, so this is moving up and down and that. And then down below, I think this space that you've created where this void is occurring, the steps going down into it, the steps coming simply up this straight run of stairs. Again, I think these are all beautiful, simple, elegant moves that I think do a lot for your project. I think you used your, the person you were designing, this researcher who was designing for this artist. I think you used that, that kind of analogy and those ideas about who this artist was and who this researcher might be in relation to who that artist was. Quite nice. I think that was good. It was not overly wrought. It's not overly, you didn't rely on it so much. Like I didn't really, I mean, on one hand, it's nice to know the story about this artist and how this artist painted and how this artist might have informed your work and your thinking. But the fact that the project stands alone, I think, is actually more important, because the narrative, the story, it helps you as a designer. It enlivens and brings to life the work that you've done and the way you work. But in a way, we don't need to know that. The building will, the project will stand on its own. Could you go back, Grace, to yes, if you could scroll through. Yes, maybe we could stop at some of these. This indentation here, this I like this too, because it's a recollection of the void. It's a kind of void. It's a recess, but of course it doesn't go all the way through. So it recalls. It's like a memory of some of the other moves that you've made. And if you could scroll up again, and then I'll ask you to scroll down. Oh, sorry, let me clear that. Here, these in both of these, but if we look at the one on the right, you've done some really nice things with alignments. So I'm looking at the alignment of this corner, those openings, the alignment of this edge here, the sort of where the two voids are, they have a relationship with one another. I think all of that's really nice. You've done this resetting again. You kind of reset that space or recessed it a bit. So you've created again a certain amount of complexity within few moves, and I think that's actually rather hard to do. It's elegant in that way. This little thing here, I don't know about. It looks a little small. It looks a little, and maybe it's just the way I'm seeing it, but that probably has a purpose. What is that, Grace?
It was the fire, or like the fire pit / oven. We were supposed to put, it's like, it was 4 by 4 by 4.
Yeah, and you know, it looks a little puny, like compared to some of the other moves, but maybe maybe the way to think about that is it's a kind of a local move. It's something at the scale of actually cooking or actually working at a counter or working with the fire.
Yeah, I thought about making it like this window right here is like 6 by 6. I thought about making it 6 by 6 because it's like directly under, and it looks like kind of like it dropped, like something like.
Oh yes, I see. Yes, okay, I
just
see that. You know, I wonder, you're doing a lot of things, even in the interior, where you have the desk that's attached. You added in your interior drawings, you added the desk, you added that little table, I think, in the corner. They were up against the wall. They, in some ways, the wall then made a protrusion with the desk and became a part of the wall. I wonder if this little block, I appreciate your idea about it dropped down, and I do see the connection between the two, and I like that. I wonder, you could still do that. You could keep that drop and we could still see that connection, the void and the solid. But I wonder if it also, there's an opportunity to connect it back to this vertical element here. I wonder if it just wanted, if it could, or if it could be attached. Also, we could still see this relationship, but we would also, it would be like the language you've used other places. This looks like it could be an attachment. Other places where you've the bulk of the building has these appendages, if you will, or that idea of nothing's really completely floating in isolation. Unless that idea of floating in this one piece is very special, that's the exception. This floats like some of the other aspects of the project do not. And this is separated, it's surrounded by space on all sides, those kinds of things. If we have time, oh, do we have time, Charlton?
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Grace, do you have any questions? If not, could you scroll up? And I wanted to just point out one or two other things. Why don't you, this will be, no, one more, scroll up one more. One more after this, if there was another. No, okay, sorry, go back, sorry. Okay, let's see, how about, well, let's leave it here. I can make my point. This dark space on the left and this tall dark space here, this kind of horizontal dark space on the right. And then this, I love this idea of walking past an opening. You go into light to darkness. I like the variation that you have between vertical space that's occupied and horizontal space that's occupied. And you can see it again if you scroll down. I know we just have a minute, but if you scroll down to your other images here, yes, on the left, you can see it a little bit there. Scroll down again, and maybe it was in the very last. No, keep going. Yeah. No, it's, I think there's like an incredible amount of variation, even within few moves. And I think that's very nice. I like your project very much. Grace, did you have question?
No, I guess not. I can't think of anything right now.
I know, you're probably tired. If there's one thing I would say to do next in your next project is to do the things you've done here and continue to do them, like see if you could keep the same ideas, the same things you did to get you here, and then wonder if you could push it all a little further in the next project. Same thinking, same way of working, but could you add, what if you had a more complex program, let's say, or what if the site were slightly more complex, or did you fold in the idea that there is a forest on one side? And like the elements that surround the project potentially, how could they fit into and make an even more full, complex, and beautiful project? But using these same kinds of maybe rules that you've set for yourself. But I think on one hand, it's sparse and beautiful and lovely. And on the other hand, I wonder if it could be even more beautiful and even more kind of involved using fewer moves. Same thing, a kind of spareness, but with great, I don't know, like beauty and complexity and joy even. So.
Thank you so much. I'll take that into account.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Grace. Thank you for showing your project and for going first in our group.
Scary.
Yes, I know. Well, you did a good job. You did a good job of presenting.
Thank you, Grace.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, Kemp.
Yes. Here, I'm going to pull it up really quick.
Okay. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello. I guess I'll introduce myself. Hi, I am Elizabeth, and I'm from Corpus Christi, which is where I am right now. I'm just pulling it up. Okay. Can you see that fine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So my project focuses on Dante's Divine Comedy, and I wanted to kind of focus on that progress towards enlightenment through inner contemplation and pretty much like this willingness to venture beyond the unknown, to like facing like whenever you get to that barrier where like you aren't really comfortable, you get past that to progress. And so this is with the idea that I'm going to be having PhD students that focus on literature and writing, and might even come across some of Dante's work. So I do this through controlling light and then the lengths of my extrusions. Here I have my first plan, which is from the roof level. And I just kind of put this in here to show that relationship to like the site, and how you have that sort of like hierarchy towards the building. And then this level right here shows the second floor, because I do have this split up into 3 floors. And this is just from that second floor view. And then here I have my first section, which is from this level beyond. And then here's my second section where you're facing the east side. And then here you can see those in picture view. I like this photo right here more because it kind of captures like everything that I wanted to demonstrate. So with like the lighting, you have your meditative space, which connects over here. It has like a shorter opening, and it's more darker, kind of represents that inner contemplation. And you can also see this entryway. Whenever you put these stairs together, it's actually very, you get like a faint light so you can see where you're stepping, but you can't really tell what's inside the building yet. So it's really intimidating. I kind of wanted a space where you felt very, confused. And I have like these pillars right here, kind of feel like prison bars almost, just to show that first level of the Divine Comedy with Inferno. And you progress and you get into the space right here, which is kind of a mixture of that Inferno Purgatorio feel. And I did this as a progression because I liked how Dante didn't really have like a space for like good people and like a space for bad people. Like he had it more as like a progression of like, as you, I guess, got like worse and worse sins, you had this progression towards good. And I like how in writing or in like the creative field, whenever you're writing, it's not like just like immediately you get an idea. It's more of a progression of ideas. And so here's a sleeping area that's kind of more secluded. And then right here, I have an entryway to the stairs, which you get like a glimmer of light up at this top. So you go through here and you get these stairs and leads you to the second floor level, which connects right here. And you get another area right here. We can see light, and then an entryway to the roof, which represents paradise. And then here I have my long elevation. This is actually the back of the building, but it's facing the cliff. And this just shows that roofway. And I've wanted to focus on my site too, because I repeat some of those elements. You lead down into this darker space, but I made sure to create an opening onto this cliff to show that progression towards light and enlightenment in a sense. And then here's my short space. I like right here, you can see how I have those extrusions coming inwards more to kind of replicate that upside down pyramid shape that you have in the Inferno. And it kind of makes that like concentration towards the bottom where the Inferno would be. And then, and then this would be my front view, the back, bird's eye, where you can more clearly see that I have this direct skylight right here. And that skylight is blocked off from the second wall in a part of it. So you have like, darker space in the bottom, but it's funny because it actually does concentrate on that. It lines up with that opening towards the stairs. So it's kind of like a, hallelujah movement. So you can see the stairs and it focuses on that. And then these are just the two sides. And
okay. All right, Elizabeth, if you could, if you had to sum up what you were, this idea of Dante's Inferno? No, yes, no. Was it Dante's Inferno, Elizabeth?
It's the Divine Comedy.
Divine Comedy.
So it captures
Okay.
like 3, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the Divine Comedy, you were working with this researcher is researching the Divine Comedy, right? Is that
They're
right?
researching literature, but yeah, it's inspired by the Divine Comedy. And
Okay. All
the book.
right. So if there's one thing about the Divine Comedy that that you would say that's super important that we understand, or that you understand, or that comes through in the project, what would it be? What would just one, if there's just one thing that really had to come through in the project, what would it be? What would you say it would really be important that this happened, that this came through?
Um, I don't know if this counts as like one thing, but like that sense of like enlightenment you feel like whenever like passing a barrier and creating, getting a sense of like an aha moment almost, because like
Okay.
as a writer, that's you have those moments, or even as like a creative person, you just
Yeah.
get that sense.
Okay, nice. So the reason I think it's, and I appreciate that answer because it's a um, wonderful way to think about it. If we imagine that the building, this project, is meant to inspire as one walks through it and lives here and works here and is here, a series of moments that are a little like aha. Of course, you talked about other things too, like moments where there's some confusion, or there's a little bit of this happens and it's unexpected. So there's maybe an element of surprise and other things. I can see that those have been worked in the project. But if there were one thing, and I like the answers like aha, or a moment of understanding, or a moment of, oh, I get it, or something is revealed. I think all of that's really wonderful. And the reason I asked the question is because you have a lot of moments in your project. And I think the project, and a lot of really wonderful moments, I think, and that moments that could be probably edited. There could be, I think, a series of edits that could go on that would, and when you edit, let's say when you, let's look at like one piece of this. I'm going to annotate really quickly. I'm going to scribble a little bit, but let's say we're looking at, well, let's take this bottom image. So it's actually pretty straightforward, but if we said that, I'm gonna edit um, this bar here on the right hand side, and then this bar on the left hand side. It looks like those are meant to almost be the same. Are they the same width or not? Not
Yes.
quite. They're the same width.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, and maybe it has to do with just the photograph, but then it's like this little element there and this, like the gap in between. Like I wonder, are those meant to be different? Should they be the same? It's like, can there be moves where there's fewer decisions, or maybe more, maybe you made a lot of decisions, but the moves that you end up with are actually fewer. And the reason I say that is because it's not a very big project. And so really, I mean, it's pretty small. And the complexity that it can handle in terms of formal moves, like the formality of the moves you make, isn't really that much. Or with, so if we look at this top image, there's 3 openings. Looks like there's a larger vertical opening here, right? That's is that meant to be a door out, or an opening where you move through?
You can see it here. I'm
going to clear it
up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because in the section you can actually see where it lines up with that second floor.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, good. These are good. Excellent. Yeah. Let's talk about these. So one of the things I really appreciate about this is the way you talked about this little space off to the side in this right image, that little small space juxtaposed against this large space here. Like that's actually like really a nice idea. And then that there's a space outside. So you go from a space that's really small and condensed to a space that's open, including open above. I believe maybe open below. I'm not sure if that happens here. Maybe that's down in here. I'm not sure, but certainly out in this direction. So I like all of that. I think that that could be really developed in a really, really nice way. I appreciate those moves. One of the things I would look at, and here's what I mean about editing, or about maybe taking maybe not necessarily taking some things out, but maybe in that direction. So if we look at this, I'm going to draw differently. If we look at this relationship here, this alignment and this not quite alignment, and then this dimension here from the opening to the end of that wall to the opening, maybe it's the same, I can't tell. There's an alignment here across here, and then this opening on the right kind of drops down with this little space here, right? You've got that. Then there's a repeating of it. Let's say it's here. So there's some things you're doing that are, let's say, asymmetrical. And then there's some things you're doing that or that align. There's some aligning that you're doing that I think is great. And then there's some things that are not aligning, which is fine, not a problem. Like we could see that opening below where the person's walking through is shifted off to the left in this view. But I wonder if, and then let's go ahead and these lines of extension, pull them down. Looks like that's aligning and this is aligning. There's looks like maybe that's in the center. Here, this opening above, it looks like it's not quite. It doesn't align with the opening. It's shifted over again, but maybe that's aligning with this below. So I'm not sure, but it looks like there's some amount of asymmetry going on and some amount of symmetry going on. And those two things, like symmetry and asymmetry in the same project, can you do that? Absolutely, you can. It's easier if you say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to slide, like you said, I'm going to push these forms out and they're going to create a kind of stepping. And in fact, the stepping and the pulling of forms and pushing of forms, that's all I'm going to do. You know, that's the only thing I'm going to do in the project. I like your Cyber Monday coming up on your screen. I know, it's like, what
Yeah, I
can
was
you
wondering
do?
about that.
Yes.
We
You
should be
could,
wrapping up. Just
okay. Okay, so that's I think Elizabeth, that's what I would say overall about your project. There's some really beautiful moments and some really beautiful moves, and this thing that you're doing over here, this kind of on the left, this the sloping down, and then it kind of mimics the stair, and then that space below. I think these are like really nice, but again, I don't know if you need it. Like, I'm not sure that you needed it to do that. Maybe just sliding out would be enough. So I think some amount of editing would give you as much of the quality that you're looking for, and maybe even more. Maybe even more. It might even give you more. But I think that your general sensibility towards the project, I think, is really nice. And in a way, you have more than you need to work with. It's like you have ideas, and you have really nice ideas. You have lots of moves, and you're doing lots of things. It's almost like the language you have, the ideas you have, they're like almost like too many for one project. You could like leave half of them behind and use those on your next project. You know, it's like there's almost too much or too much variation that can create. I know you, and like maybe a little bit of confusion is okay, given your premise and given what you were trying to achieve, but probably I would probably scale it back. I would probably pull back a little bit, and I would edit some of it out, and I would maybe create more, just a few moves that are, I'll just use the word more normative, or more almost like predictable, in creating a kind of unpredictability in the project. I have one question. Your very first image, the very first opening image, if we go back to that one, I know time's up, but
very
it's, yes, okay. So I'm struck by the color, like the redness of this and the color. And tell me, was that intentional, or did it happen? Did it just happen?
Yes, I actually my mom only put up a red Christmas tree lights right now, and so I was like, okay, that's perfect. So
Okay.
I used that, and then a lamp I had to get like a direct light on top because I did want to, have that like
Yeah.
light.
I think it's a very dramatic image, and because it is colored and because it does have a light on top, because it has a shadow and the view you've taken, it's a dynamic view. It does look like we're to understand something about color here, or about red, or about orange, or about this striking. It's a very abstracted. I mean, it talk about like a painterly, it has a kind of painterly quality actually, which I think is so beautiful. It would be nice, again, it'd be another idea, but if you could fold that in, not so it's like now I have idea number 20, but it's like, no, I folded this into this idea of aha, or something else, whatever it is. I think it could be really beautiful. It's a really striking image, and I like it a lot. But I just didn't know if it just happened or if you were in control of it. Either way, I think I'd wrap a narrative around that, or I would wrap your story around that too, and include it in as well. Yeah. So I know time's up. There's always more to say, but thank you, Elizabeth. Do you have any questions, Elizabeth, or is there anything you wanted to add?
I think you gave a lot of good feedback. I understood what you were saying, and it helped a lot. So
Okay. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Hi, I think I'm next. So I'll just share my
Okay. Hi, Yvette. Is that Michael Benedict? Michael Benedict. Yeah. Michael Benedict, I
Yes.
think you should turn your microphone on and join
I
in.
said I'm just dropping in. I spent a morning at another seminar, but
Oh,
I
you
always like to
did?
see what. Yeah, I like to see what.
Oh, I
students-
know. It's nice to see you, Michael.
Nice to
Really.
see you.
Hey,
Good.
Michael.
If you have any
Hey,
thoughts.
Charlton.
Yeah.
I won't say anything, but I'm just watching. Thank you so much.
Okay. Nice. All right. Where are you? Are you ready, Yvette?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, can see
Okay,
it really well.
So hi, I'm Yvette. I'm from Edinburgh, but I'm currently in Austin. So I'll start with my project. So the researchers in this project are primarily focusing on literature and how themes and tones evoke emotions in like readers and characters throughout the novel. So someone who's very well known for this is Franz Kafka, which is like the idea behind all this design. He was known for very dark themes and tones, such as like anxiety and having very chaotic tones, and basically evoking all the emotions from people in the 20th century into his forms of literature. So one of his novels that's very well known for this is The Metamorphosis, which is about a character who struggles with financial burden and isolation, and how this creates anxiety within him and creates various psychological issues among him, and how this affects his family. And so eventually, this is like his downfall, but it also creates bliss and hope for his family. This also like helps his family throughout it. So the first image I have, I believe like represents this quite well. I wanted to have like two separate divisions like amongst his novel. So the right side is, I wanted it to have like very limited light, a little bit more of like an anxious feeling towards it, very chaotic with many things like within it. So like the bookcases and the desks, the built-in desks, and then as you transition, you would get the light, the bliss, the hope that all his family feels at the end of the story. So here's like more openings. Here's the plans. The first plan is the lowest part of the building. I didn't want to have floors within it because I wanted to emphasize more of scale. I feel like scale kind of evokes more of like a larger impact on the way you feel. So like the greater scale of the building kind of had like made a person feel more like insignificant and like has more of a anxious feeling towards it. And then the second plan is the more top part, because I did include like in addition to like a second floor where you can go and you can be out and see the outside. And here's the two sections that go along with it. So here's the first two sections, and I also wanted to like include transition from that book, like very like anxious isolation feelings to more of the hope, the bliss, and the peace. So to the first image to the left, it has like a resting area that's mainly for one person, very isolated. You can't really fit many people into it, but as you transition, I even included like a hallway that has like a lower ceiling to feel more like enclosed, to it transitioning to a more open space with much more light, and it then goes into a balcony where you can interact with the outside. And here's a couple more images that include all the fenestrations. I also want to like that I wanted to really include isolation into this. So as you enter, it's like a tunnel that only fits like one person. So you're kind of entering alone, but as you exit, you can exit with like multiple people through the balcony into like the outer part where you can go into the pit. And here's more images of my project. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Did you, thank you. Yvette, did you read Metamorphosis or did you
Yes.
read the, okay.
That's why I enjoyed doing this so much, because I knew so much about it and so much about the author.
Yeah. Okay, so what you picked up on, this idea, let's say in the novel, what you focused on or decided to try to, I guess, capture in the building, this unsettlement or anxiety, let's say, space that was almost anxiety provoking, or loneliness. I think that's the word you use, loneliness. And then this other feeling really of peace or calmness or joy, I suppose. I think thinking about the work in that way, like to design a series of space and then a transition between the two, a space that has these qualities that might provoke these kinds of a kind of reaction in a person. I think it's hard. I think it's actually difficult to do. I think it's, I wonder, in fact, I am constantly kind of wondering about that the role between designing a place or a space that might evoke a reaction in someone versus, no, we cannot do that. Like, it's very difficult to do that. Like, how can I know what I'm going to feel in a big, tall space one day and how I'm going to feel in a really tiny, dark space another day? Depends on how I'm feeling that day, or it might depend on a whole lot of other things going on in my life. Or maybe a little tiny dark room would actually not feel lonely at all, but it's quite comforting because it's small and it's cozy and it's dark and it's cave-like and it feels really, really nice. So it's a really, really, I think, incredibly complex kind of question that you're asking and looking at, and I really love it. I love the question. I actually, it's a really tough. I think looking at Kafka your first semester and then designing something around metamorphosis is not easy. But so I love the question, and I think it's probably one that you'll continue to ask probably. So if we are, but let's just say that this premise of these two different kinds of spaces, and I think, I'm okay leaving it at that. Like there are a series of really dark spaces that are small and low, and they're tight and they're constricted. The openings are small and there's light coming in a way that's really powerful, but it's mostly dark, maybe tall and maybe really big space, but it's mostly dark. So you feel small in this dark space, a different kind of small than you feel in a big light space that's light filled and large. And that none of some of your earlier image actually get at some spaces better than these, because these are all from the exterior. We could talk about them and maybe we come back to these, but if you go back up to some of your earlier images where we're looking at the more of the interior, let's look at these for a minute. So if I'll just kind of scribble on here, but this space, which is meant to be kind of constricted and dark, which I really love. And then this, although it might be more constricted and it might be more dark, although it's pretty dark, at least from this image. And over here, it looks really, really dark. But then you have this one little opening at the bottom. I think, in other words, I think there's a kind of power to this. And I think there's a kind of power to the other space. And putting them together has a kind of other sort of special power because they're juxtaposed with one another. You go through one and then the other. The joint between, I think, becomes super important, and I'm not really understanding very well the transition, or the transition is more like a threshold, like a really narrow threshold, and that could actually be developed. Your whole building, in a way, could be the transition from this kind of one kind of space, light-filled, joyful, peaceful, calming, wonderful, whatever, however you want to describe this, looking out over the trees. And the other one is dark and compressed and lonely and all these other things that actually, by the way, is pretty beautiful that it overlooks this space because it has the section, the verticality of this dark underground space, and then this above ground dark space is actually pretty nice. I mean, I actually really like that. One's outside and dark and enclosed, and it's connected to the dark and enclosed and vertical space that's inside. I think that's really nice. Actually, the stair that goes between the two ought to be spectacular, honestly. And maybe that is one kind of transition. So in other words, your project could start to be about the transition between the two, not only just the two spaces, but the transition between the two. If we scroll back down, I know we don't have a lot of time, but if we scroll back down, maybe stop here on these. So these are really nice. In terms of composition, I think there's some really beautiful moves compositionally. It's a little, the stairs, because maybe it's the way they meet the ground, or they look like feet that kind of ground this project. And I wonder if I don't know if I don't know about that.
That's what's great about them, Elizabeth.
Talk about that, Michael, because
Well, the guy wakes up and finds himself an insect. People think maybe a cockroach. So this building wakes up and finds it have legs. I would cut out all the supports except the stairs.
Yes.
The idea would be the stairs themselves are what is supporting this box.
Well, it looks like they should be, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would go all the way, because that's just what's marvelous about insects, is they have these overlarge bodies on these improbable legs, right, which are articulated and extend from the body. So this sort of overlarge, awkward, handsome in a way body on these cantilevered stairs, I think that would be, right, that would get Kafka right there.
Well, I agree with that, but
Yeah.
there's something I would disagree with you about, or let me add something to that. That if you're using the analogy of a bug or an insect, they're actually really, I think, in like the way but the body and the legs, if you just study the relationship between the form of the body and the legs, there's a sort of elegance, or maybe not, maybe you don't think it's elegant,
Yeah.
but don't you think so, Michael? Yeah.
Yeah. But this I find that compositionally, this is a marvelous little building.
Yes.
I'm a little disappointed it's divided in two, but because I don't think, I mean, one of the views shows windows. And these are sort of asymmetrical, a little bit Corbusian. What are some of the other elevations where we see, maybe scroll down if you don't mind.
Yeah, that,
Yes, no, there's one where you kind of see eyes. Yeah.
yes, I think these.
Oh, those are
Yeah.
plan views. Yeah.
Well,
It's a little
yeah,
anthropomorphic there.
yeah,
But the bottom left one is gorgeous. I think they're all so handsome
yeah,
and so nicely composed. The division down the middle, I don't know. I know why it's there. I guess it was in the parameters. I find this a very exciting project. But I would have liked more subjectivity of what it's like to wake up and look down at your own body and see that it's turned into a roach or a grub. And I think the little room maybe is too small, too big. You'd want it to actually bump your body. You'd want to actually feel slightly like you'd feel it against your shoulders and your butt, like you can hardly get out of it because he can't get out of the body. He's a human mind in a bug's body. I just think that the story is obviously stronger than can be expressed in architecture. But I think the architecture might have been a little more, shall we say, violent or a little more graphic.
well, here's where I think where the graphic that you're talking about is really successful, where it's on like these elevations here, where you get a lot of opening and stuff where it does meet the ground, and then this is very blank up above, and you see it over here too.
Yeah, right.
So, right, there's a kind of power in
A lot of
isolating.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, where it becomes more normalized. I think it's.
For me,
Go ahead.
the real opportunity here to see is there's a difference between taking a poem or a story or a piece of music and translating it into architecture via, I'm going to create this kind of space, and this kind of space is going to make me feel the same way as when I listen to the song or read the story, versus making an architecture that actually embodies the music or embodies the story. You know what I mean? It's like architecture has both means available, and skepticism that Elizabeth expressed, like, can I make a space that will reliably make someone feel a certain way? It seems like to make that happen, you actually have to make a building that is itself that way. In other words, so, right? So these stairs become legs, these windows become eyes. You can't be too literal, otherwise you're just doing Disney, right? But there's a level of abstraction there where the building seems to actually be the creature that you're thinking about. And then you feel empathy for it, right? So it's empathy for the building, not how does the space and the light make me feel? It's a little bit different. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Great comments, folks. We do have to move on, but great
Thanks
comments.
for letting me blather on there.
Yeah, thanks,
it was
Michael.
definitely
It's
worth-
always.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Yvette.
Yeah.
Thanks. Keep going. Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what the secret sauce is, but those are handsome little buildings, both of them.
Aren't they? Yeah, aren't they really?
Michael, you're now officially part of this review, so.
Yeah, but I need to have lunch and take my own studio.
I don't know if we'll let you go.
Hello, my name is Yaya. I'm like, do I need to share my screen right now? Or?
Yes.
Sooner or later.
Yes.
So, hello, my name is Yaya. I'm originally from Turkey, but I live in Austin, Texas, right now. And today I'll be talking about my project, which is, my research was based on the Donald Judd, and he's an artist, and he used like specific objects to show his artistic styles and all. And basically, so the main idea is like there might be only like one geometric object which will be enough to explain the purpose of design by itself. That's his purpose. Like there might be only one geometric object, or there might be a couple of geometrical shapes which will explain the flow of architecture and the meaning of it. So that's what I did in this project, and basically I used a lot of geometrical shapes to show Donald Judd's style too. So this is my first picture. There are like windows, and I mean, I tried my best to show all of the things that we learned throughout the year. And I used this like little rectangular shapes right here and stairs like that. And this one is the side view and elevation basically. And there's, this is actually three floor plan, 3 stairs. And this one is the, oh, sorry. Yeah, this one is another side of it. And this is actually west side of it. And that one is the east. So this one, there's a little door over here. Let me show it. There's my little door here, so you can get into building, and when you get in, you can just see the geometrical shapes inside of the building, and when you look outside, there are also these little shapes right here. So actually, the thing is, like, this is not like a house. This is just to show the geometrical shapes, because that's what Donald Judd was doing. Like, he was just using specific objects to show the geometrical shapes. So this is the section cut of my building, and there is a little stair too, and there are like spaces for people to sit and watch outside. And there, this one is another section view. There are little columns for people to stay on it. And these are some close shots. And this one is my west section cut view. This is the east section cut. And there are like my scale figures here too. Here. And these are my floor plans. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Yaya.
I mean, sorry for my English if I couldn't explain it well.
I think I got all of it. No, you explained it really well. Yeah, not a problem at all. No, I understood. This is a nice image to stop on. So Donald Judd, I heard you talk about the simple forms that he used. And so you were picking up on that in this project, right? Is that what I heard you say? And how so? Like, it just, maybe just like in one sentence or two, how do you think the building embodies, like just to the heart of it, how does it embody Donald Judd, the sensibility of Donald Judd? Which aspect of Donald Judd does the project?
Okay, so he basically, like, he always says that it is not necessary for work to have a lot of things to look at. It is like, it is supposed to be like something as whole, you know, it is
Yes.
quality as whole, and how interesting it is, like, even though it is one shape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So we might, I mean, one way to think about that, there's many ways to interpret that. One is a kind of repeating shape, like one shape that's repeated, or one shape that is repeated in the space in between these repeated shapes or forms. That becomes crucial, or the material it's made out of, or the way light hits it, or so that's actually what enlivens and changes, like over time, the way light hits it throughout the day. Let's say one form, one repeating form, the same form, but the level of change and interest and variability makes it have a kind of aliveness or beauty within it. So that's not exactly what you said. So I'm just like, in some ways I'm putting words in your mouth, but what I'm wondering about is how are you using Judd in your project? Because I actually do see quite a bit of variation in the project. So I don't see one or a series of, let's say, proportional dimensions, let's say, like Scarpa did. You know, he worked on projects where he used proportion, and he repeated that proportion. It might be at the scale of, you know, your hand, or it could be at the scale of the entire building or an entire chapel, but it was all like proportionally related. So that's one way. Or to have this exact same form repeat, repeat, repeat. Sometimes it's a void, sometimes it's projection, sometimes it's the scale of a room, sometimes it's the scale of I don't know, just a small void in the ground. So I'm wondering, it seems like your project has more variation in terms of its form. Like if we look at, that I'm not sure is necessary. I don't know if it helps make the argument. Let's see, if you scroll down a little to another one, here, let's stop here, because this was in some ways maybe the most obvious, but, and I don't mean to like pick on these like horizontally oriented openings, you know, that I've circled in the left, but, and I'm sure they have a reason for being like that, and maybe they even you pick up on your, oh wait, maybe they picked up on something that's repeated somewhere else, or maybe you could say a few words about those, because they seem out of character with the rest.
Those are like, since they're like rectangular shapes, there are a lot of rectangular shapes right here, like straight down, you know, straight, and I just use those art to make the buildings interesting, you know, to make it look interesting.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the point that I really want to make, is that I don't think Donald Judd would necessarily feel that he would have to do that in order for the project or the work or his work, or in this case, your work, to be interesting. I don't, it might fall out of the range of, I needed to do that because it would be exceptional. If I didn't do that, then the project would be only half as good. It would only be, you know, just, it needs that. The project needs to have that. And I don't think it does. And so it's those kinds of things, because I think your project, if you scroll down some more, I think your project holds together really well without it. Like, or it has a potential to hold together really well without it. Do you want to say, but you wanted to say something, I think. I don't want to cut you off.
I was just gonna say, since like, so I saw when I researched about Donald Judd, and I saw that he was saying like stuff about being interesting in shapes or in his art. So that's what I understood from that word, you know. So I just put it I
Okay.
just had this kind of shapes here, but you're right. Like it's it would be maybe better if I didn't put it.
Yeah, it's like a question. Like I question it. I question whether, because the language of the rest of your project is not that. And
Mhm.
if I think about Donald Judd's work as a kind of guide for myself, I might have to wonder or look at his work and wonder how he handled exception, let's say, or something that was not consistent or not repeating or not proportionally the same, and what meaning that would have. I know you all talked about exception this semester. So the idea of exception is really good, a
Oh,
good
yeah.
one, and it can be really powerful, the idea of exception. But within this language, the exception might be, it might not be a formal solution to being exceptional. It might be like, if we look at this elevation again, you might say that this is the exception. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm
This
working
one.
with them. Yes, like the one I'm circling right now. Maybe that's the
Oh,
exception somehow,
okay.
because it's bigger and it's
Yeah.
larger and it's exceptional because of
In
the
the
room
middle.
behind it. Yes, yes, or in the middle. Exactly. Yes, its position. It's just its location in the project, or it might hold the center, the actual dimensional center of this vertical wing and this more horizontal wing of your project. So to be an exception, but within a language that you've established, or or even having a language, a particular language that you've established as being important, I think that's worth thinking about. Because I think, like the other one, and this is not, I think it's a very common thing, especially starting, Yaya, if you could just scroll down to another image. Especially in the beginning, I think you'll probably hear this a lot. Every student will probably hear it a lot. Is the role of editing or taking out? It's like putting things in the project. I could do this. I could do that. I could do all these things that have this effect or that create this. But then taking things out is as important, or simplifying, or simplifying but still creating richness. You don't want banal. I mean, I think the fear is, if I take it out, it'll be a boring project and it won't be
Yeah.
interesting. It'll just be blah, and it'll be nothing. This is just nothing. Like, I'm a designer. I need to like do these things. And I actually agree with you. Like, yes, like to do those things. Yes, you need to do those things. I mean, in some ways it's like throwing a lot at it. But then it's also being critical of what you have, and then wondering, do I really need it? This space, I mean, I have to say, this space here is pretty spare, right? It has this little opening up above. It has one single opening here and a stair there. And I would say that in the right materials, in the right context, in the way that orientation, the way light might come in through this window into the space, or into the view, if it's a really precious view out this window, or the steepness of that stair, or if it continued down, or if there was something about that stair. Very few elements in the space below it, very few, 5 elements. But those 5 elements could be incredible. They could create an incredible, or let's say the room was all covered in wood, ceiling, floor, walls, a beautiful walnut deep wood that's been, sanded to a certain, like, to have a certain smell and you finish it in a certain way. So in other words, you don't need to have a lot of variation if each thing that you've done, or if you've thought about it in a way that it's really powerful. And I think that space could actually be more powerful than this tall space that had. Now, again, it's like, I don't know, maybe the way you handle these openings and these projections, we could talk about materials again, or view, or light. So maybe it's as powerful. I don't know, but it's not necessarily so. I want to say something else about your project. The vertical and the horizontal, or the vertical kind of tower element, and this other, like, I guess it's like a cube or box-like element. I think those two things could be really, really nice together. One of the things to think about is the transition between the two, how they join, like how you move from one to the other. I think that's a critical moment, the threshold between the two. And then
Yeah.
ultimately, if you had more time, or if the parameters were open to you, that tower might be more tower-like, and this other piece might be more whatever it is. So there might even be more differentiation between the two parts. Maybe the one on the left, the tower, is really light-filled with lots of openings, although the openings might be regular. There might be a kind of regularity with one exception, let's say. And the other part of your project might be mostly solid, like you've indicated, with a very special few openings. So I think there's a kind of potential power in what you're proposing here. And Donald Judd's a really interesting artist to look at. Part of when I think of Donald Judd, there's a kind of restraint that ends in complex beauty and emotion even. And, it's a kind of heightened awareness of the very simplicity or simpleness of a simple box, a simple form. The beauty in that, there's a kind of heightenedness to that, that I think only like that kind of simplicity might give you. And but yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just really quickly, if you have any questions, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I agree about this. Like, if I moved this wall right here, if I didn't like put it, it will be nicer. Like, it will be only one shape, right? That's what you said, right?
Yeah, or
if
it
I
could be
could.
or the nature of that wall. Maybe that wall's really thick. Maybe it's not just thin like the wall above it. Maybe it's really fat and you walk
Oh,
through a very
okay.
thick wall. Or maybe there's a material change, or maybe there's a surface change, or maybe you step up or down at that threshold in the thickness of that wall. Or maybe it's a really thick wall with a really small opening. I mean, there's so many ways you could think about it, but the idea is that moving from one space to the other is a real opportunity, and it's a real thing. And it might even be the place in your project that is the most special. I mean, maybe that's the place in the project where you inhabit both realms, both sides of this, and maybe that's where it's most Judd-like. And maybe I mean, there's lots of possibilities, but yeah.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
feedbacks.
Oh yeah. Thank you for presenting, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's nice.
Okay, I'm next. I'll share my screen.
Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. I'm Lisbeth, and
Hey, Elizabeth.
I'm from Houston, Texas. Okay, so I'll read my narrative.
We're not
Focusing.
seeing your screen, by the way, Elizabeth.
Oh, can you share your screen?
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you? Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so focusing on the individual, can one create an environment where one can embody the spirit of the said individual? The intellectual Edward Hopper concentrated on Cubanism and Expressionism. By interpreting his art in relation to solitude, one can infer such spaces similar to his paintings can create the same atmosphere of loneliness. Therefore, producing a space with the same intentions can translate the same message and pass on the spirit of the individual. So in this project, I'm focusing on the embodiment of Edward Hopper. So in his paintings, he strongly relies on the idea of solitude. And in his paintings, you can see the openness in
openness in his spaces and how dramatic the light is coming in. So here in the plans, you can see like the geometric shapes in which one can see like in other pictures here, like kind of like the cubism in his experimentation. So here I wanted to illustrate kind of like the journey going through kind of like the doorway. So going through this journey of his experimentation in art and finding his own way. So I put the stairs more to the left side so one can have this longing walk through the space. So, and going up, you can see kind of like the small fenestrations where you get like slivers of light. And over here, you can see this side was more of like finding his own way. So here I put more cubic things and more rect things here, and smaller fenestrations where light can go in. So on this side, I wanted to showcase more of his impressionist work, where there's this idea of more openness and more spacious spaces. And like in his paintings, there's always like these big fenestrations where you can see like the outside world. And I wanted the person inside to feel like this yearn for community and other people. So looking outside, I put that side on the cliff side so they could see more into the outside environment. And here are the other pictures. And here you can see the both sides and how they correlate to one another. So I divided them between like 2 floors. So one was most focused on his most famous work, while one is more of his journeying along, finding where he was successful at.
Okay, and the space below in this, let me annotate really quickly. This space below, did you talk about that space there and its relationship to the rest of the project?
Okay, so yes, I think in other pictures you can see better. Let me find it. Or in the top view, I guess. Okay, so there's actually the stairs connected to there. So I wanted the space to be like right kind of like in the entrance, so you can see how it's like same thing, like going through kind of like the same journey, but like deviating kind of, because he actually went back and he was doing impressionist work, but he went back and experimented some more, but he still kept with the same idea.
Okay, so I think that like that part of the narrative is I'm not that might be helpful to you as a designer to know that, and that might help you organize, let's say, the circulation in the project. It doesn't necessarily come through that part of the narrative. I think what's nice about that is the connection between circulation, thinking of circulating all the way down below and then all the way up to the top. And it seems like that the circulation in your project is really at the heart of what you're doing. And maybe that has to do with this narrative or about his work or about the research into his work. I know you talked about the role of singularity or of being alone or of being a kind of solitude. His paintings kind of exude this kind of loneliness or solitude. And I think all that's fine. It looks to me like your project has a lot of smaller spaces where the individual is kind of highlighted within the space or the individual. But I would say that you could have, like, scroll back up, Lisbeth, where we can see in section a little better. Yes, I think any of these. Okay, let's take this one, these two, where the shape. Let's just say the shape of this space and the shape of, oh, I don't know, the space below it. It's probably not a good example, but because this has the stair in it, right? So the stair, here's where the stair is cutting through. And here's where I think the stair as a room, if you think of the stair as part of the room up above, as part of this space, as part of this space, and then of course it's part of this little space over there, the stair could be the mediator between all three of those spaces. The stairs, I like what you said about this little opening, just a little crack of light coming in. The stair might be this thing, and it looks like it's trying to be this thing that works its way through the project, and off of it is, or at the end of it, becomes a radical kind of experience for the individual at this level. Over here, this room actually seems not as interesting. It might be the way I'm seeing it, or the way the way you've cut through it, or where it's being cut. It doesn't, and maybe it's because I'm not seeing the other side, but it seems less characterful, like some of the other spaces might. Maybe it's a little small, so I'm not seeing it so well. But like over in the other section, how this person seems to almost take up that entire space. And then below down here, the person is small relative to this section, by the way, which is quite nice. It looks like this is bleeding into the space up above it, which is really nice, like this space. I'm going to try to this space. Is that all one space, Lisbeth?
So which part?
On the left, on the section on the left.
Okay.
Is that all one space, the colored in blue?
No, that isn't.
Do they connect up to each
Yes.
other? Yes. So then they're one space. They are.
Okay.
They're one spatially. Because they connect, and space flows from one to the other. You might not be able to walk up there or to get from one space to the other. That's okay. In terms of the section, I think it's quite beautiful. And when in moments like that in your project, I think are more successful than on the section on the right, where there's it almost looks like room, 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 where you're relying on that stair to really be the room, the beautiful, wonderful space that has all of these things, small opening, big opening, maybe. It's thick at the bottom, it gets loose and light at the top, the stair does. It opens up, those risers open up, and it's spaces like kind of leaking through them on the bottom. It might be very solid. So I think the section itself on the left over here, that section, I think is, I think in some ways more successful than the section on the right. But having said that, there are other things that you're doing that are quite nice. Like, let's talk about this part of the section where the person is small next to a pure opening. It's just opening. That's all it is. It's groundedness and opening all edges. And that actually is could be really, really nice, where the opening is not framed. That's all there is opening. And I think there's a kind of power in that. And maybe that's what I'm looking for, is the power in we'll use the word loneliness, although I hate to think that but the power in what we might think of one being a heightened awareness of oneself, even in a space where it's just maybe just you in the landscape, or just which brings me to another kind of question I had. you could use, and I know that's like there's so much possibility in all of these projects, but the idea of the site where there's trees on one side, and like that idea of the fullness of a forest or the fullness of greenery or the fullness of trees, how one might, and maybe that person's oriented that way, or maybe not, maybe they're oriented, the trees are behind and they're oriented to a long view, the distant view or the sky, or so it's those kinds of things that I think are insinuated in your project throughout that with more development and with some more kind of with a continuation really of what you've started, I think could continue to be or could be even more powerful in your project. There are things you could employ that you haven't yet. So if we look back over here on this, it's small, but if you look at this section on the left, if you imagine that the verticality of this space, you might employ like an opening in the ceiling up in here in the roof, right? You might actually and to see this is all one room. Sure, you can't walk, you cannot traverse it, but it is one space. And then to imagine that light might come through here, there's maybe a connection to the ground below here. So it's weaving its way all the way through. The power of the kinds of things that you've begun, I think, could be enhanced.
Elizabeth?
Yes?
Yeah, I think we have to move on to. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anything, Elizabeth? Any questions or anything I didn't
No, I think
address?
that's it. Thank you.
Great comments.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Elizabeth. Jay.
Yep, my turn. Let me share screen.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good morning, professors. My name is Jay Swallow. I'm from Northern Virginia. I'm in Northern Virginia right now. It just stopped raining, so that won't be in the background. But so I'll just go ahead and read the narration. This building will provide a UT Austin PhD candidate the ample space, services, and inspiration to study De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium by Nicholas Copernicus. The student will be researching the skies and history to find a possible fraudulent connection between Copernicus and multiple Arabic scholars who preceded him. The building has Arabic architectural techniques such as solar shading and archways to gently nudge and inspire the candidate, while also providing an economical solar environment and structural support. A solarium, observatory, and presentation room are all included to provide the most useful research habitat possible. And this picture on the right is the half of that top space. If you see my mouse, is the observatory, because obviously Copernicus was he was mostly known, he was known for a lot of things, but he was mostly known for his studying of heliocentrism. So the observatory was included in here, so the PhD candidate would be able to look up to the stars and study Copernicus and his Arabic counterparts' conclusions in their studies. So here are my plans and sections. I had to turn the section sideways because of the template, because of the way the template was. So yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to go on to the next, or stay on?
Yeah, you can. No, you can keep going.
All right. And then this is the split half. So I'm going to go for the left one. Over the pit is an archway, and then to the right of it is a garage, and behind the building on this right side is a stairway that would take you from the garage to the first level, another stairway to the second level, and then from the second level to the top to the observatory, there is a step ladder for space.
Mm-hmm.
And right here, I'll show you that in a different angle. Right here is a solarium. Heliocentrism is what Copernicus and this PhD candidate will be studying. And I think it's a very important part to have. I thought of the Solarium, the first, like this has been in my design the whole time because I just thought it'd be nice to have a sunroom, get all the serotonin, and B, to be inspired by the sun. And so there is the staircase on the outside that would take you up from the garage. And these solar shades are there, because solar shading is a very big architectural technique in Arabic countries and Arabic regions because of how hot it is in those desert climates, that they need to be as efficient and economical with their use and treatment of the sun. And so that is why I included solar shading, also because it is very logical to have that, because West Central Texas is a desert-ish, not exactly, but it can get hot. And this area where it is blank is blank because it is the presentation room. So, and because the presentation room, it would be a blacked out, it would, like, all the lights off, blacked out room. So I decided to not open it to the outside at all. And that's the reason why that area is blank. And then here on this angle, you can see the side, you can see these side solar shades, and then some of the side windows. I wanted the windows to be really big, especially on this face, to get some evening sun in, but not too much, which is why I included the solar shades. And this is a good angle of the solarium with the planetarium. And so, yes.
Okay.
And here's the encompassing. Let me move that. Actually, no. Yeah. So this is the encompassing views.
Okay. So thanks, Jay. So I'm going to jump in with a few things stand out to me. One is in terms of its composition, the overall form is potentially really interesting in terms of the composition. Like the idea of a kind of a tower piece, which is where your planetarium is, or this where you're, obviously this is kind of a special place, but having this piece come down and then this and then the solidness of that room behind actually really helps you in terms of composition, because it gives you, sorry, this is so hard, I'm annotating, but this solidness against the openings, these openings that you've got here, help compositionally. And then of course this piece that's protruding up. So I think and then the stair which connects it to the ground, although I wish it continued further down into the pit somehow, so that so the section or the verticality might somehow be emphasized. And I say that because, and maybe at the heart of that comment is a sense that you could take the ideas you've started with and push them all like another 40%. So an example of that would be let's talk about the shades, like over here on the left, these shades. Like it's possible that, and I know you have this kind of solid piece here, and I know that this is meant to be open. That's a sunroom there. So, but it's possible to instead imagine that the shading becomes the building on that side. Like that whole side of the building is really about shading. And so it's a thing, like the shading, if shading is really important in this part of Texas, and then instead of being two elements here, and that are actually also going in two different directions, which, okay, maybe it's like you employ it in a larger way, so that instead of, it's like the difference between like a landscape where you've considered all the kinds of the form of the landscape and the plantings, like that, versus like just planting a row of shrubs. It's like a row of shrubs is kind of like a small thing. And whereas in thinking about the entire landscape is a much larger, it's like part of a larger schema or part of a larger idea. And I think the reason I bring that up is because the idea of sun shading can be really, you could enhance that whole part of like one whole side of your building, let's say. It's become mostly about the sun shading and how you sunshade. The planetarium up above, similarly, I think could be designed as a really special, more special element. Like I love how it's at the top. It makes sense that it's up there. It's open to the sky up above. I think that's really, that's good. That's nice. But it could be more shaped, right? It could be bigger. It could be more spacious inside, or the outside could be orthogonal, but the inside could be actually curved or have another kind of shape, something special about that. Maybe it has specifically to do with how one occupies a planetarium or how one uses a planetarium space. And then I think it's the same holds true for the solarium. Like I like kind of love this idea of the planetarium and the solarium existing together in one project, because it gives you the opportunity to think about how would this planetarium, which I'm looking at the sky primarily, versus the solarium, which I'm looking, maybe there's like light coming in on 2 sides or 3 sides, and it's light filled, but I'm not looking at the sky, I'm looking out horizontally at the landscape, or I'm looking out at that forest on one side, or I'm looking at a distant view on the other side. So how can you've begun to do it because it's all glass. It looks like, you have, it's completely all glass on this side. There's very little frame around it. Same with the planetarium. It's open above, but it looks like it's like solid. It's mostly, well, it has like this kind of 3-sided kind of openness. So maybe it's only open above, for instance, and just a very, very small opening out in the other directions. Whereas the solarium is absolutely open. And then you have to employ also this shading device because it's all glass, let's say. And you want it to be light filled, but then in West Texas, it can be too much light. And that's where in other words, you're combining your ideas into a holistic, like you're on the path to doing that because you've got the parts there. But I wonder if they could be enhanced and again, like kind of pushed further and then read instead of reading. I think that's why I like this elevation over here on the right, with these kind of the openings, the small openings none of them are corner openings, right? I mean, they open to the ground down here, but they're like punched openings, and they enhance the idea of the solidness of that wall. And I think that's strong. That's a strong idea. And how can you then enhance the idea of a room that's all glass, or enhance the idea that it's the sky, it's all about the sky, or enhance the idea it's all about like trying to mediate the sun with these solar panels. So also the thinness, like of the there's a kind of thin, and maybe it's these images. Scroll back up, Jay. Scroll up to some of the earlier images. Yeah.
Would
yeah.
this one be good?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me clear my. Yeah. This is the other one of the other things. There's a leanness to the project in a way that I don't mind, but I think there could be some bleeding. Like in here, I like this idea that you come from all below all the way up into the space. You continue up, and then I mean the stair. I mean the ladder. I understand why you have to do a ladder, but all the way up, that there might be some spatial continuity as well. You're getting it. It's like starting to feel that way, but that stair into this space and then the ladder up, like that connection all the way through, because you've got rooms that are like room-like. They're really like rooms, and to cut through them with this kind of an amazing stair, let's say, or a stair that maybe changes as it goes up, and it's one move all the way up to the top. Could be where you're going from below where it's dark and really stereotomic, it's dug into the ground, to the above where you're really looking at the sky. This way it could be really, I mean, it seems like that's what you've got going on, cut through these pretty kind of ordinary rooms, including this one down here. I think that's what you're considering, and or you could consider that. It's like it's in here, it's embedded in the project. I think that could be enhanced even more. Yeah, I think that that idea there could be good. But you know, things like calibrating the exact opening of this, you know, on the over on the left, like maybe that opening's too big, maybe it needs to be much smaller, maybe it needs to be a slit, and then it's just focused on the sky above. The columns below that hold it up, this archway, the idea of an arch or going through an arched opening, I think can be really powerful. Maybe that again is repeated, like going through an opening that has a kind of, whether it's arched or not, I don't know, but passing through a space where it's clearly you're going through a space that has, it's more open below, but it's really covered up above. And then when you get to the planetarium at the top, it's reversed, where the floor is very solid, and the up above where there's an arch below, the arch is now gone, or the arch is opened up to look to reveal sky. Those kinds of relationships, I think they're kind of existing in the project very very slightly, and those kinds of things I think could be enhanced.
I agree with you. I think there's some things. So the arches, I think my approach to it was too surface level. I think I could have gone further with that and done I would agree with you, and I think just with the arches specifically, but more, I think I really could have done a better job with the solar shadings on the front, like you said.
Yeah.
You said it could have, instead of just being like a facade, it could be an actual part of the building. I think that would have made it look more holistic and more cohesive with the solar shadings, instead of just making it look like here's a building with some solar shades. It could be, here is a building of solar shades. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
We actually have to move on.
Oh, okay.
Last student, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Maybe the last student.
Hello, yes. Okay, let me share my screen.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi. Here we go. Okay, wait. Okay, so this is my project. I'm just gonna start. Okay. Oh wait, I'm
Okay.
Olivia. I'm from Dallas. I forgot to do the intro. Okay. This design is focused on the research of Edward Hopper's paintings and their consistent theme of solitude that is represented in them. Influenced by Hopper's work, this space is designed not to present a feeling of loneliness, but rather show the state of being alone or a sense of solitude. With the incorporation of lighting and outdoor spaces, one has the freedom to work inside or outside while still feeling a sense of comfortable isolation. Many of the rooms are designed for the individual rather than as large areas to gather. So essentially, when I was designing this, I wanted to create a space where one could feel alone, but then still have not feel lonely in a sense. Because while I was researching, I kept seeing that come up as what people thought of as his, like Edward Hopper's work. And I thought it was interesting that you could be alone and not feel lonely. And so my way of incorporating that was adding 2 patios on either, here, wait, I'm gonna hide. There we go. On either side of the model, so they could connect with nature. Mm-hmm. So then here are my drawings. This section is taken from the 2nd floor. This edge over here is the north side. I know the north is supposed to be at the top, but I switched them, or like changed the angle so that the
north side of the, or so the pictures could all, the drawings could all align. And then here is the plan drawing from the first floor.
Mhm.
And then my section from the west side, and then my section from the north side.
Mhm. Okay.
And then, so here are my other section models. And so my idea was to incorporate a lot of lighting and play with lighting and see how it affects the space, since that's what Edward Hopper did a lot in his work. He utilized shadows and lights within a space and saw the way that they would reflect against the walls. And I thought that was very interesting. So I wanted to present a lot of open light. And then I also wanted to give some space for personal reflection, which I was able to do so right underneath the stairwell over here.
Mhm.
And then here are my different angles. I also incorporated a skylight as shown here. So the lighting could also come in from the top. I planned it so right on this side of the model, this is the south side, and the south side generally receives the most sun and is generally the hotter part of the house. So I tried to avoid many openings on that side of the model. And then I wanted to have the patio for where the sun, on the east where the sun rises, and then on the backside over here, which is the west, where the sun sets. And then here are more angles. And then, yeah, that's about all I have to say.
Okay. I see Piergiana. Piergiana, I see you here. If you jump in, if you so jump in, and any other reviewers who are here, jump in. I'd love to hear your comments too. So thank you, Olivia, for your presentation. I know we've run out of time, but I'll try to be succinct. So, you know, this project reminds me of the first project we looked at in some ways, where there are not a lot of formal moves. There's a kind of spareness to the number of formal moves you've made. And yet I think it, and maybe because, or maybe not because, but it seems in spite of, or in addition to, there's potentially a lot of sort of variation within your project. So spatial variation. And when you talk about lonely, or not loneliness, but solitude, and actually solitude and loneliness are so interesting, because some people devote their life to living in solitude. I'm thinking about groups of monks or hermit, you know, not even hermits, but let's say monks who live, or other religious who live in solitude, but also in community. And so in your project, the community part of your project reminds me of the way you've extended, like let's say over here on the upper left, the outdoor space where it's one person, but you've brought in the outdoors. You brought in the outside. Maybe it's that forest, or maybe it's those trees, or maybe it's a long view or the distant view. In a way, that becomes the kind of community. It's like the natural world or the outside world. So versus, let's see, maybe if you could go, well, maybe we could look at this bottom right one, where, I'm thinking of that little space maybe scroll up, actually. Scroll up to to another image where there's
interior space?
Yes, it was interior, where there was one, yes, there, exactly. There, where the outside is, I think, denied. So there is no exterior. And I think there's quite a bit of variation, again, within your project, with the idea of being alone, but not lonely, or being in solitude, but having a variation of experiences in a solitude, or in a context of solitude. So I appreciate this like horizontal room here, where it looks like the view might be out at eye level. I can't quite tell. single opening here, but then a very, very blank, long, big blank wall. That kind of I'll use the word extremeness, I think can be really quite lovely and quite beautiful. The carving out and occupying of this space is it's big, and I like that because it feels like I could be underground in this very compact stereotomic space, but it's big. So I imagine it being cool and potentially, I know it's open to above, but I imagine it could be dark because you're underground. It's carved out, and even just the surface texture. In fact, the texture throughout, because the forms are relatively simple, but not banal. I start to think about materials and the introduction of a variety of materials that go along with this range of experiences in solitude. And solitude, when I think of solitude or being alone, I can't help but also think about being with others and what that means. Of course, you can be very lonely in a crowd, it's just like there's that thing, and you can be completely not lonely alone. And so it seems to me that you're beginning to address some of those things. I don't know if it's intuitively or not, but they seem to be showing up in the project. I think it's a handsome project. And there are some things like I wonder about over here on the left. I wonder about that slit opening, like why is it punched, or why doesn't it just go all the way to the edges? Because that's the only opening in that room besides the one leading to the next space. So I wonder, about those kinds of things. But with another go round, I would probably look at the connection all the way through, like what it's like to be down here, and then to move up through the building all the way up to this space, and then things like dimensions and openings, or dimensions of your openings. I wonder about these two things over here, like what is that? Why are they little? I don't exactly know what those are, and maybe that's okay. But so I think there's a lot to like about the project. I think it has a good start. I think it could be developed further. I think there could be more. And I think there's probably more to say about solitude too. And I think expanding the notion of what solitude means could be beneficial to the project. Do you have any questions, Olivia? Or maybe you could scroll back down to the bottom again. Georgiana, because you're showing up on my you're showing up. I'm sorry. You have a thought, I know.
I agree with your comments. I think they're pretty to the point. I was also wondering in what ways the notion of loneliness or being alone can be expanded, and what potentials can the expansion of that definition can afford you, also as a designer, Olivia. So so those are my 2 cents. But as I was listening to you, Elizabeth, I was like completely agreeing with every comment.
Oh. If we have just another minute, Olivia, this elevation down here in the bottom left, it's like completely blank, right? It's like denying all except we see that no, you're outside here on the far left, you're outside here up above that on the far right. And then of course there's the digging into the ground with the stair that takes me down there. So there's something very poetic about that idea of I'm opening up this way, I can see out that way, and of course the other ways too. I'm just looking at this section, and then below ground, and then also but denying there's no openings on this side at all. I mean, maybe that's has to do with some functional thing inside. Maybe that's a stair or something. But you can always find a way to make an opening, but they don't exist. And then I wonder, would you have skylights? And then I wonder if it's those skylights here. So it's about the edges in this experience is about the edges, and of course the sky and the ground. So I think I think maybe thinking or maybe you do recognize that about your project. Maybe the project was intentionally designed that way to create that, but I think there are things embedded in the work that can be quite powerful, just like this large opening that's almost the same size as the entire elevation, right? In some ways, in contrast to the other one we just talked about.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful to hear all the feedback about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you both. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. It was great for the students to hear your feedback and get comments.
Oh, well, that was
Really appreciate it.
so great. I think it's a wonderful project. I think the brief is really, really wonderful. I think there's so much to work with there, and I think there was so much that was addressed that I think you should really be happy and proud of the work. So
But we think it's
really-
because of the Viscom class.
Definitely.
It's got to be this.
We did allocate quite a few Viscom classes to design.
well, we did there, especially at the end, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It was worth it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, maybe Pierre Gianna doesn't know that that Elizabeth and Joyce are teaching the Viscom section of the course.
Oh, I see.
So,
Congratulations to all the students.
yeah.
First for you and your belt.
Persiana, thank you so much too for taking time to do this today.
We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Have a good
Yes.
one, everyone.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. You too.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay. 9 o'clock tomorrow, Elizabeth.
Got it. Okay. See you then. All right. Bye now.
All right. Ciao.
So guys, congratulations. You made it, whoever's still on, not everybody I know, but you made it through your first review, and really exciting. It was great to see the work. I have to say, when I started looking through presentations last night, yeah, Rohan, you can, yay.
Let it fly.
Definitely. I was pretty excited when I saw the work. You guys have worked very hard and come a long way. I think tomorrow, Professor Snyder and Lewis will join me and Professor Danzy, and we'll kind of do a wrap up rather than.
Yeah, we'll do a wrap up then.
Yeah, so, but 9 o'clock tomorrow, not
Okay.
8, but 9. So you get a little extra sleep, and we'll let you just go. And I'm assuming some of you have other classes today or other things to get caught up on that you've ignored while you were doing this. So we'll let you go, and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. Yep.
See
All
you
right,
guys
we'll
tomorrow.
speak with you tomorrow. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I didn't include some images that were that would express the site void. Should I include those?
If you want to, you can re-upload the final presentation.
I had like seating areas and everything, and I feel like it was kind of absurd of me not to include those things as well.
No
But
worries.
thank you so much.
Yeah, you can certainly upload if you want.
Have a good one.
You too, Coral.
I'm exhausted.
I am too. I spent the whole time just jumping from room to room, making sure everything was going okay. And then at the end, making sure everybody had time to finish it.
Yeah.
But we had great reviewers.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So
We had what was that? Was that you?
that was my chair squeaking, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. It sounded like a child
It
squeaking.
was me crying. It's my inner.
Yeah, that was your inner you. No, I don't know why the breakout rooms a few people got them and most didn't, and
Yeah, because some it posted and some it didn't, right?
I did. Yeah, it was weird, but it all worked out. And then when I realized some of them, I was worried. I was sending out emails to some of them to like say, and I was sending out like an email to Sophia, I think Dela Cruz, because she wasn't on. And so I couldn't put her in the right breakout room for the second session. But I guess some of them were just watching the first session on YouTube.
Oh.
And they hadn't gotten on. So it's like,
Okay.
So I told them to get on so I could put them in their breakout room. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some other weirdness going on because the whole thing was like, you see them, but you couldn't move them.
Yeah, it could be, you could move if you wanted, couldn't you?
I could have gone into the breakout room. I was never seeing all of the breakout rooms. I could see one and I could,